Welcome to the Dog Expert Podcast, the podcast dogs would want you to listen to. Powered by canineprinciples.com, helping passionate dog people go from feeling unsure and overwhelmed to confident, compassionate and science savvy through a rich library of online courses and formal qualifications. Each week on the podcast, we dive deep into the real, raw and rewarding world of dogs. This isn't about obedience. This is about understanding. Because dogs aren't problems to solve. They're free-thinking, sentient beings to connect with. Hello and welcome back to season 3 of the Dog
Amazing.
Podcast. We're so excited to be back, aren't we, Em?
It's been so good. I've been waiting even from last week. I'm like, oh yes, Tuesday evening.
So we've had a little change and we're live on Tuesday nights now during term time or Em's Wednesday mornings usually.
Yes.
But there will be a couple of deviations to that, like today, because we are an international podcast and we've got amazing speakers lined up for this season. So good. And today is no different. We are delighted to welcome the amazing Ness Jones. I know.
So exciting.
We have been literally bursting to welcome Ness. For those of you who aren't familiar with Ness is actually one of the International School for Canine Psychology graduates. She has a diploma in canine behaviour. She's also certified in applied canine ethology from the Ethology Institute and a certified professional dog trainer. She's a canine myofunctional therapist and a small animal nutritionist, and holds a diploma in small animal naturopath. And Ness has a passion for helping people with, helping dogs, but helping people to help their dogs with separation anxiety. So I'm going to bring Ness on and she can tell you more about the amazing work she's doing. Before I do, I just want to say that we are going to have to talk about her fabulous A.L.O.N.E method and the amazing new book.
Her new book, absolutely.
Woo! Welcome, Ness.
Hi, Ness.
Well, thank you for having me, and what a lovely welcome as well. I don't think anyone's probably amazing before, but
I'm very excited to have you.
Absolutely. Do you want to tell us a bit more about you and your dogs? Because they're what everyone's really interested in. Ness.
My dogs. Well, there's 2 of them in here with me. I wonder if I can show you. There's one. That's Mr. Big, and the other one's kind of off camera, but yeah.
So they're both Malinois.
Yeah, they're both Malinois. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
They're a handful, but yeah, they're well trained, so they're pretty well behaved.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a bit more about why you've niched into separation anxiety and why you feel so passionately about supporting guardians and professionals to help more people with separation anxiety?
Yeah, it's interesting because I finished my ISCP diploma in 2021. I just went and had a look because it felt like longer ago. But I realized in one of the assignments, I actually wrote about separation anxiety, except that the stuff that I wrote about probably isn't exactly what I would do now. In fact, it's not. There's things I've definitely would. I read it back and I'm like, yeah, probably wouldn't do that. Probably wouldn't do that. That was part of what I wrote as an assignment. But when I had my second dog as an adult, so we had my first Rottweiler, which was Inca. And then we got a companion dog for him, which was Maya, and she was a Rottie cross. But, new, like this is years and years ago, so not a dog trainer at all, and didn't know, never even heard of separation anxiety at all. And anyways, when she was about 7 months old, she put holes in our walls. Like, we're not talking about chewed up a pillow or something. There was literal holes in the plasterboard.
Severe distress.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we knew it was her, not Inca, because, well, we'd had him longer and he'd never done anything like that. But she was the one with the powder all over her nose and her legs. Yeah. So I have a connection with that issue anyway. And then when we had the COVID lockdowns, separation anxiety, that term, it became a little bit of a buzzword, and people were saying, my dog's got separation anxiety after the lockdowns. I don't necessarily agree that they had separation anxiety, but it really became a word that everybody, or phrase that everybody knew, and were almost panicking about, I think, if the dog was crying or upset because, the guardian had left them, they might jump to that conclusion that it was And I think I like to be able to explore whether it is that or it isn't that, and help guardians understand why their dogs might be reacting the way they are. And then, of course, if they have got, and we should call it separation-related distress if we're going to use the proper term, or behavior, separation-related behavior. People know separation anxiety as a phrase a lot better, I guess. So, but I like to be able to, why is the dog doing that? If we can narrow it down, it's always helpful. And then, tackle it for the individual dog as well, because they're all, there's different. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you.
Thank
you. So there could be different reasons for the anxiety, or indeed frustration or fear of missing out, FOMO. So therefore, if we can narrow that down, we've got a better job of resolving it.
I agree so much with you, because it's not separation anxiety. There's so many contributing factors to that distress response, and it can be as simple as isolation distress, because the dog has never been left alone and they have no coping mechanisms, because now all of a sudden everyone's gone, they're vulnerable, and there's no coping skills to navigate those situations. And dogs can actually have both. They can, for a main caregiver, they can have the separation and isolation distress. But for using the correct terminology per se, distress is the more appropriate word than an anxiety word. It's the internal response of panic. It's an individual response that's involuntary. There's no control over it whatsoever, and the behavior is what manifests from those emotional response of panic, fear, overwhelm. So yeah, absolutely, it's so important. Like you said, every dog is an individual, and it's not just separation anxiety. It's such a big, broader picture than that for each dog, and genetic base, learned history, associations, etc., etc.
It really is. And I think that the thing that often goes not unrecognized, but maybe isn't appreciated as much as it deserves, is the amount of emotional toll on the human as well as the dog. Because it is so stressful when you're a guardian of a dog with separation anxiety, and you love them and you're trying your hardest to do right by them, and they're not being naughty, they're not disobedient, or for toileting on the bed when you're out, or chewing the door frames and the skirting board, or whatever it is that they're doing.
Holes on the plasterboard.
That's it.
Yep, with powder on the nose. Yep.
No, it's a good point, and I get a lot of it breaks my heart, I have to tell you, when people say my dog's getting back at me. And you're like, no, it's panicking, it's scared out of its little mind, and it doesn't know what else to do. So
yeah. And do you think that post lockdown, in your experience, there's been an increase in separation related incidents, or guardians reporting separation challenges?
I would say definitely an increase in guardians reporting it. I think, look, even dogs that were fine pre the lockdowns struggled, not all of them, but it depends on the individual dog again, how robust and competent they are and all those sort of things. But a lot of them started struggling even though they were fine prior, because they've had access to mum and dad for the best part of a year, or 2 years even.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're walking out the door and leaving me like,
Yep.
What's going on? I haven't seen this. It's out of character and I don't understand. So even those dogs, but I guess you guys were the same as what happened here in Australia. Was when the lockdown started, you could not get a dog for love nor money. You couldn't get one from the breeders. You couldn't get them from the shelters or the rescues. You just couldn't get them because people were like, oh, well, I'm home now. I might as well get that dog I've always wanted.
Yeah.
And then, of course, those new dogs come into these existing homes and are never taught to be by themselves. So, there was, I would say definitely an increase. But again, the issue being, is it a genuine separation-related distress, or is it, is it somebody saying that their dog's got separation anxiety simply because that's the word that's going around? So my dog was excited when I came back in the door, therefore it must have separation anxiety, without kind of that understanding of that's not necessarily what that is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and context is also so important, because you can get, especially post-COVID, we get into habitual patterns of behavior, right? As human beings, we take the dog out more than what we did prior, because now we're bored, we're isolated, and so the dog gets used to, a certain patterns of behavior every single day, to what was, even online clients, I was saying, please stop walking your dog 4 times a day. This is not sustainable, and it's also overstimulation, because when the day does come that lockdown ends, you cannot sustain that. And even though it was a gradual approach with the levels, there were color levels, I think I remember something about color levels and all those things, and people were only slowly integrating back into the office, it would be walk the dog every day, 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, the dog needs to go out, I need to go out, and then office. And then the dog was left, and independence is so, again, it's also so important, and it's part of a coping mechanism. And when you have these habitual responses that are now become a new pattern of behavior every day, then it's a switch that changes that can absolutely cause distress, but it's not necessarily, like you said, separation anxiety. There's context is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Context is everything. Because, even if you were looking at your dog, if you walked out the door and you were looking at your dog, and a simple example is maybe the dog is panting. Yeah. And that dog could be stressed. I know my boy's noise phobic, or sensitive. So if he hears something, he'll start panting, and but there's a difference between that and a hot dog. And is that even in winter, you guys and Joe, you're heading into winter.
Thanks for the reminder.
Sorry.
But houses,
the odds ever be in your favor.
Houses can get overheated even in winter, so it doesn't have to be summer. So we can't say, the dog's panting, so therefore it's distress. We really have to narrow it down and look at the context, and also look at all the other displays and behaviors that the dog is doing, and say, it's not just panting, it's drooling, it's pacing, it's doing this, that, and the next thing.
Hair is shedding, all these things. Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit around why a dog might struggle being alone?
Why it might struggle being alone? Okay.
Just so, what would influence that sort of separation distress? So what could it be something from puppyhood memory? Could it be that lack of gradual independence, or a sudden increase like through lockdown? What sort of, why might dog struggle?
So many reasons. Emily touched on some of it already, like if the bitch is stressed when she's in whelp, or when the puppies are in utero, is that the right way of saying it?
Yeah.
Or when the puppies are born, if their home environment is stressful, if they're not getting the right nutrition, if the bitch is stressed again after they're born. And then there's a study done by Sargassen that said that dogs between the ages of 5 months and 10 months that are given the proper socialization, and I really don't like socialization as a word. I think exposure.
Yeah.
But people understand, well, most people think they understand socialization, but yeah, that's another story. But exposure to environments in the big wide world that help them be, safe exposure to environments in the big wide world that make them feel confident. Those puppies are less likely to get separation anxiety. Now, you guys would probably agree with me as dog trainers that, okay, the study said 5 to 10 months, but we could say that should really start from, when the puppies are born. We want them to be exposed to things in a way that they feel safe, they feel confident, all those sort of things. So there's those reasons. Genetics, of course, can play a part. So unfortunately, there's a lot of unscrupulous breeders out there that are making money by breeding highly anxious dogs and creating more anxious dogs. So those dogs aren't naturally confident. And we know that a naturally confident, robust dog is going to be more likely to cope with home alone time because they're naturally confident. It kind of makes a lot of sense, right? So we could see behaviors in puppies because they're young, they just need to learn. Teenagers, we know probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that most dogs that are surrendered to shelters are probably teenagers. That's my experience when I was volunteering at one, because they've got lots of energy. They don't know what to do with it. If they're not getting their needs met, what are they going to do when the guardian walks out the door? Oh, they might make their own fun. Yep. Then you've got the seniors dogs, they might be going blind or deaf, or they've got cognitive decline. Yeah. And they just feel more comfortable having somebody with them, which makes a lot of sense. And even if if the dog is in pain, it could be, I've had countless clients where the dog's been tracking really steadily with their home alone time, then a bout of allergies hit, and then bam, that's it. They're back to, really low time. So we have to look at the health of the dog as well. It could be pain related. We know, the gut-brain connection as well. So I do like to take a holistic approach. So, what can we do to help the dog? It's like a jigsaw puzzle. So what little bits of the puzzle can we, get to form the whole puzzle? And that might be looking at the diet, the gut-brain connection. What is the dog being fed that we can look at? Can we add some supplements? Has the dog got generalized anxiety, or is it just about being by themselves? So there's a whole gamut of different reasons why a dog might get separation-related distress. There's been a few studies where they say male dogs are a little bit slightly more prone to it. But in terms of actual breeds, there was one really robust study. I think they had 207 dogs. I think it was in Finland or Iceland. I forget now. And in terms of dog breeds, there's been so many studies that I think they all say something different. So what would be more helpful, I think, to look at is the proliferation of that breed in that country. So here in Australia, lots of oodles, whether it's spoodles, moodles, groodles, golden, lots. I get a lot of oodle clients because there's a lot of oodle type dogs in Australia. Does that mean that oodles are more prone to separation anxiety? I think it's just that there's lots of oodles here.
There's just more. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's, I know I say this all the time. I really love this topic. It's one of my favorites.
Every episode.
One of the things about this topic is it's so broad because, again, like you mentioned, there are so many contributing factors to separation or isolation distress. It can be also part of a fear period during adolescent development. The brain matures at different rates. So it's also in context to, do we have increased estrogen and progesterone for a bitch, or testosterone with the male? Now we have fluctuations of cortisol and serotonin through a fear period. So that's one of the contributing factors. Genetics, absolutely, because they will be born with more heightened receptors. So, and if you have a poor genetic background, and as you mentioned, with stress crossing over through to the placenta and the bitch is nursing her puppies and they're stressed, you know, we've got already elevated stress levels and cortisol levels, and they haven't even opened their eyes and ears yet. Then they're in, you know, they come from a dubious background, and it also depends as well. Have they ever been in a home environment, or were they kept outside in the shed? How much human interaction have they had, or the lack thereof? And when it comes to exposure, so let's say even if the puppy, I know breeders, or when I see my behavior clients, they get their dog at 12 weeks, 16 weeks. And my question is, oh, that's interesting. Was there a reason why the breeder gave you this puppy so late? Because one of your most important bonding periods is after 8 weeks old. Now, COVID aside, that was very different. Oh no, it was just the last of the litter. No ethical breeder will just wait until the last of the litter. They technically only breed once their list is full. They've done at least a video check, an insane check of your home, a questionnaire. So even breeding aside, then little furball comes into your home, and it is exciting and overwhelming. And every family I have ever worked with has always started with the best intentions, because they love this little noodle so much that they do everything they possibly can, but then they don't start leaving at the most opportune moments, when it really, you know, after we've toileted, eaten, all our needs, physical, emotional welfare needs have been met. As they sleep, leave music on and quietly go walk to the end of the road and come back, or just open the door and close the door randomly throughout the day, so it doesn't become a departure queue. And it becomes a normal habitual, it's just something that happens day to day. It's not a life event. So these are all little tiny steps that need to be done, and they even take time off work. And now we're on week 2, week 3 of puppy being home, and we need to go back to work, and it becomes really, really difficult for them. And then it perpetuates in circles. But you know, that's one isolated context. If the puppy also comes from bad genetics and all these other things, depending on development periods, different rates of the brain, how that dog is maturing, and then adolescence hits, wah, fear period. And they can have multiple. You know, every dog is so different. And also learned negative associations, all these things. You leave, bad things happen. When you leave, I feel awful if I were to humanize it, you know, saying from a dog's perspective, humanizing. But it is very difficult for true isolation distress, or separation anxiety or distress, even if a dog has both. It is one of the most, because to help the family understand, because most dogs need to be on medication when they have that kind of distress response, because their whole autonomic system is out of whack, and there's no way that you can get them to a point where they can learn and retain information that you're trying to teach when they're in that state. And it's crossing, because everyone, and holistic, like you said, with your gut biome, that is so important. Probiotics, all of those, those live enzymes are so important for that balance of the gut. Protein, if you have a high carb, low protein diet, it's not going to help the dog. It's not going to fix the situation, but it's definitely going to help along the way as the whole approach. But it's complex, but there are times where there's dramatic improvements, but there are also times, if it's not done appropriately and it's not done to the benefit of the dog's emotional well-being, then you may never be able to leave your dog, and you always have to find a carer or a sitter to look after your dog when you want to go out for dinner, because of the nature of distress.
On that, because emotional resilience, the predictability and the safety side of things are the foundations, absolutely. But we want to be building that emotional resilience at home. And although it is really tough when you've got an older dog that's got separation anxiety, that's been through the rescue system, and it's really tough to crack. It's never too late to start, but that emotional safety, the predictability as the foundations, along with the nutritious side of things and the link between the gut and the brain, all being taken into account. But what I have seen guardians do is flooding dogs with with too much going out, coming in, going out, coming in, and like throwing it all at the dog in a desperate attempt to try and go back to living some kind of normal life themselves, where they were able to just pop out and see friends for a coffee, or even just to go to work. And they're desperate to try and do something. And I've seen dogs harm themselves when they've been crated and they've got separation issues. It's horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. But Ness, just come to you about your amazing framework that you've built called A.L.O.N E, apt name.
Yes.
It's really sort of easy to understand whether you're a guardian or a professional or studying somewhere in between, or I believe we never stop studying. We're always carrying on. Can you tell us more about the framework that you've built and how it can help people?
Yeah, so the A.L.O.N E method, which I'll talk about in this book, so it's just an anagram basically. So A is for assessment, which is assessing what the dog's threshold is. So when we're tackling separation related distress, we need to know what the dog's threshold is, because the easiest way, I think, to explain it to the average dog guardian is it's basically the line, the panic line. So anything above the line, the dog's panicking. Anything below the line, the dog is nice and calm. And so what that means is we train everything under that line, because it's kind of a no-brainer that if the dog is over threshold, then they're panicking in whatever that looks like for that dog. And every time you step outside the door, the dog has a panic, a fearful episode. And then next time you step out, it happens again. That's why that let them bark it out method is countless clients have been told that, or they're by well-meaning family and friends, oh, it's a dog, they'll get over it, let them bark it out, all those things. And they still end up with me. And I always say, oh, how did that work? And they said it got worse. And the reason it gets worse is because the dog is consistently going over threshold. And what happens is that threshold gets lower and lower and lower. So you've got even less time, or the panics gets more and more exaggerated. So assessing what the threshold is means that we need to train under the threshold. We need to know what the threshold is. The caveat is we don't want to go over the threshold. So we're nudging up against it to kind of just get a feel for where it is. And then we start the first training session well under that. So we're nowhere near in danger of going over the threshold. So that's A. L is learning to be calm and confident when they're home by themselves. So it is using gradual exposure therapy to help them learn to be by themselves. So we know where the threshold is. We're going to start the training time well below that threshold, and we're going to teach the dog that it's okay to be by themselves in a nice, calm, empathetic way where the dog isn't stressed, and then gradually building up that time. O is twofold. So observing the dog on a video feed, a live camera feed. You can watch the recording, but if the dog's already gone over threshold, watching the recording, it's too late. So it's best to have a live camera feed. And there's multiple ways of doing that. You don't have to go and rush out and buy a camera. You could use a Zoom call. You could even use things like this. Zoom, which is free for the first 40 minutes, Google Meets, Microsoft Teams, Skype, or you could, if you're brave enough, start up a Facebook Live, but make sure you set it for only me. Everybody's going to be on your feed going, what is this? But there are ways of getting that live feed without, if cost is a factor, then, but the other part of the O is understanding, observing your dog in the sense that you understand their body language. So you've got a well-rounded view of what your dog looks like when they're feeling stressed or uncomfortable. Because if they're going to go over threshold, there might be a pattern in the things that they do. So if we can figure that out, then we can break the pattern, so to speak. So basically, having a really well-rounded understanding of your dog's body language, and that includes tails, ears, their breathing patterns,
even calming signals, which are so subtle. Yeah,
I tell everybody, all my clients, to get this book. It's back the front, but it's Turid Rude on Talking Terms of Dogs, Calming Signals.
Exceptional book, yeah.
And I love it because it's a lot of fun if you take it out on the road as well. So you could be walking down the street, your dog sees something in the distance, and you can look at them and go, so you're thinking, like it. And I think that's the bond.
It's a story, yeah.
Communication with them as well. I think it brings you closer together. So I love it. And of course, understanding that every dog is different. So every individual dog is going to have different behaviors and different patterns. And again, if we're seeing one yawn or one a panting thing,
doesn't necessarily
might be okay. It's what else is going on, and the context as well that we talked about. And nurturing successful training. So basically setting the dog up for success. So that means, and you touched on this already, Emily, so the dog, especially when we're starting foundations in training, we want to get solid foundations. I add in complications much later, not till the dog's solid at 30 minutes. Then I start adding in complications like pre-departure cues, time of day where the dog's more active mindset, and maybe two people training or whatever. So the foundations have got to be the easiest plan for the dog, and also the one that they're most ready to rest and relax. And to do that, we want to make sure they're not hungry. We want to make sure they're not expecting anything. So they're not expecting play. They're not expecting a walk. They're not expecting dad to come home from work or the kids to come home from school. They're not expecting a whole bunch of school kids to troop past the house for them to bark. They've been walked, they've been fed, they've had some enrichment, they've had their exercise, their play, whatever it is. They've toileted, of course, and they are ready to rest and relax. And unfortunately, the tricky bit with that is sometimes when we want to do the training, it's not the ideal time for the dog. So that can be something that we have to kind of go, all right, how do we figure this out? But it can be done. What's the last one? Easy step-by-step training guidance. So it is the guidance for the dog is, we want to make it as easy for them as possible, again, because it's foundation, especially at the beginning. And so it is step-by-step. It's gradual exposure. We can't rush it. And I think, was it you, Joe, was talking about, people trying to do the training and not doing it right because they are rushing. The other thing I wanted to touch on is one of the things I see most commonly when people try to do the training by themselves is that they wait to see how long they've got. So they're like, well, I went out last time and I was gone for 5 minutes, so that was really good. So now I'm going to go out this time and I wonder how long until they bark. And then so they're waiting for the reaction. So they're undermining their own training, and that's pretty tricky to do as a non-dog professional, because you're not really sure when your dog is going to get to that point. And that is why the O is so important. Live camera feed, understanding your dog's body language and what it looks like when they're starting to creep up into the realm of anxiety.
Yep.
And with regards to the goal, if you like, from the framework, it's the 4 C's, isn't it? Calm, confident, comfortable, and consistent.
Yeah.
It's not a race, and it's so important, as with everything that we do with every dog, is that we recognize them as an individual, and we listen, we validate their emotions, and we understand that our human emotions can sometimes be put onto our dogs when we're feeling stressed and anxious, that we need to be somewhere and go somewhere and do something. If you're listening to this, you won't be able to see, but if you're watching this, you'll be able to see. But Ness is holding up a book called Please Don't Go. And this is her new book. And I must admit, I haven't yet read it. So for those of us that haven't read it yet, Ness, please can you give us a little rundown of what we can expect in your new book?
So it's a holistic approach to resolving separation anxiety in dogs. And it basically starts with kind of what a definition, really. Then, maybe the whys and the myths, some of the outdated advice, the really things that we shouldn't do.
Please don't just leave them in a crate.
Yeah.
No, with a buckler on. Yeah. Medication and natural remedies. So, and also kind of, like I always say, I'm not a vet. Talk to your vet, but I'm not a trainer that says all dogs that are displaying these behaviors should be on medication, because I've had plenty.
Everyone is different.
Yeah. But there are other options as well. And so we goes through that. Then how to create that successful training picture, which obviously is, we're talking about exercise and enrichment, not leaving the dog for longer than it can cope with, the observing the dog, and maybe we can change the parameters in the training. If they've had some bad experiences, if there's a fair history, maybe we can change it up. Like if the dog's outside, can we bring them inside? Can we use a different door? Just little things that can help. Then the actual steps of the A.L.O.N.E method and how to do the training, the door desensitization, starting there, and then doing the actual leaving, touches on pre-departure cues, and then some troubleshooting and preventative measures. And some case studies, including my dog, Maya.
I think everyone should get this book.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the adolescence link with separation distress and how that ties in. Every single dog goes through adolescence, and it's something that we I don't know if you've listened to the episode with lovely Holly Leek, who came on and talked about resource guarding. Holly has been researching diligently for a good couple of years now around adolescence, and she's written a book that is, we think, ready to go out, but she's just like, one more thing, as we all do when
because I look at it now and I go, I didn't include that.
Yeah,
always done that.
It's published now.
One more.
Yeah, she's actually written a course for canine principals as well, which is nearly ready to go live. We've just had the last case study in to put with it, so that's going to be coming over the coming weeks/months, because adolescence, like you say, that if we can better understand that adolescence period and the areas that are sometimes misunderstood as separation distress, when it's actually just a dog going through adolescence, we can reduce the number of dogs that are being relinquished into rescue, and we can keep more dogs with the families that got them, because they love them and they want them to be part of their family, and we can help better support them in feeling less helpless with the situation that they find themselves and go through the heartbreak of relinquishing the dog. So that's something that we've got coming up. What would you say before we wrap up, because I'm conscious that we're close to time, as we always get to close to time, but what would you say to a guardian listening, or a professional who's got a client who has a guardian with a dog with separation anxiety? Could you give them any immediate tips that they could begin this week to start to reduce that separation anxiety?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think first, we've got to talk about not leaving the dog alone. And it sounds so counterintuitive. Well, how am I going to leave the dog? How am I going to teach the dog to be alone if I'm not leaving it alone? But we need to do that so that we can actually start using the gradual exposure to safe absences. Only if they're left alone and they're going over threshold, we're not achieving anything. So it can be tricky. You've got family and friends, hopefully, but if not, then there's other options out there. And it can be expensive, but there's other options as well that, if you just got to do some critical thinking and think, if I can't afford it, what else can I do? Like reach out to community groups and on Facebook, or maybe his friends down the dog park. And there are ways. So that would be the first thing. Just figure out how to do that, and then just do some get to know your dog, I guess, like that whole observation thing. Figure out what they look like when they're happy and relaxed, so you can tell when they're not. And then you've got a better understanding of them, and it's going to build your relationship as well. You build your bond, and then you've got a better chance to start doing some training and gradually leaving them by themselves. But yeah, I always start with the actual training with draw desensitization. If they've got no threshold, which some dogs don't, as soon as the guardian starts to leave, and the dog's already getting hypervigilant, and then they've probably got no threshold. So, but that's fixable too.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's super helpful. And if anyone listening wants to get in touch with you, how's the best way for them to reach out and find out more?
Super easy. It's just nessjones.com. I've got podcast episodes on there, blogs on my website. My email is hello@nessjones.com. Super easy. And on my website, you can also book a free 30-minute discovery call. That might be hard for people in the UK, but they can always email me and I can still sort it out, and we can still come up with the time that suits them.
Fabulous.
Oh, that's so good.
We're so grateful to you for joining us today. We really are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really hoping.
I can't wait to get this
read
book,
the book.
honestly.
Yeah.
It's so good. Because it's such a complex behavior with so many moving little pieces, and people's they're time poor and the ability to do it versus the dog's emotions, and it to get as much knowledge as we all mentioned earlier. We never stop learning in this industry, but it's and I know like your writing is awesome, so I'm so excited to get this book.
Thank you.
The book's available on Amazon, is it, Ness?
Yeah, Amazon. It's also on my website as well. So you can buy
brilliant.
it off my website if you don't want to go through Amazon. There's a special link there for a different way of doing it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Right, well, we'll have to finish the episode here, although I feel like this is another guest, Emily, that we could speak to all day, don't you think?
All day. I think we need to have like a what's it called? Like they have those reunion shows, but we can put everyone at the same time with all little pictures, and we can all just have a big conversation.
We never get a word in edgeways. Everyone would be like, but.
It's such a good idea. What about this?
It is such a good idea. It is. Maybe a Christmas special.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So before we go, I just want to let you know about next week's guest. So as I said, we're moving to Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. BST. Emily, what time is that? Wednesday morning at
6. Yes.
Ish.
Yes. No, it's 6 until our clocks change, and then I get confused.
We'll be online at some point on a Tuesday/Wednesday. You'll get a notification if you've subscribed over on the YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@the-dog-expert-podcast. Next week, our guest is Vicky Skinner from Animal Focused Alliance. Vicky's going to be talking to us all about how to be an ethical professional in the dog world, in an industry that's unregulated. So not only for you as a professional to become making sure that you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, but also if you're looking to get a professional in to look after your dog, what you should be looking for, what you should be asking them about. So we're really looking forward to welcoming Vicky next week. Yes. And we will see you all then. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Dog Expert Podcast, the podcast dogs would want you to listen to. If you've enjoyed this episode, do come and let us know in our free Facebook group for dog lovers everywhere, Ethical Dog Training with Canine Principles. That way we can make more content like this that you'll love. We would love for you to leave a review on here and hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode.